Cycle Talk TV is brought to you by Ducati, Kawasaki, KTM, Harley-Davidson, On Two Wheels Motorsports, Polaris, Triumph and Victory. On Cycle Talk TV tonight, we jump on the KTM 1190 Adventure R. We throw a leg over the KVF 750, the V-twin ATV from Kawasaki. We check out what it takes to turn a Ducati 851 into a classic road racing machine. And let's kick it all off with the new Indian Scout. It's not often we get to ride bikes from new manufacturers. About 12 months ago, Indian was reintroduced after nearly 50 years. And this is the Indian Scout, the new machine for 2015. It's smaller, it's lighter, it's more nimble, better balanced, easier to ride, a lot of fun, and only $17,995 right away. The Indian Scout is aimed at people who don't want one of the 1500cc plus cruiser machines that are out there from the Americans and even the British these days. It's aimed at someone who wants a smaller, lighter machine, but still a full-size cruiser. The Indian Scout's powered by an 1133cc V-twin, 60-degree water-cooled engine. Very new engine, much bigger than the Scouts of the 1920s, 30s, 40s. But the riding position and the style is very loosely based on the Scout of that era. And that bike was certainly designed and built as to be manoeuvrable, well balanced, easy for anyone to ride. And that's what the reborn Indian Motorcycle Company wants to do with the new Scout. The bike is very easy to ride, it's very light for such a big machine. And it's still a performance cruiser, it's still a big bike. So there's still a lot of bike to move around, but it's very well balanced. It's quite long, but with a very low seat, you can maneuver it easily no matter what size you are. Now I'm just over 6 foot, 185 centimetres, and I found it very easy to maneuver around, but they actually have kits to make it a little bit more comfortable for people that are either taller or shorter. Off the showroom floor, an Indian Scout has one seat, but there's an extensive accessory catalogue, and things like a pillion seat, saddlebags and screens are all available to customise your Indian Scout the way you want to have it. With a stiff aluminium chassis, reasonable suspension and the engine bolted into the frame as a stressed member, the Indian Scout handles very well over smooth roads. On the bumpy stuff, it's a little bit more of a handful, but still not too bad, although the short travel suspension does send a few shocks through to the rider. The riding position of the Scout is fairly upright. You're not leaning back or anything silly like that, and the forward set controls aren't ridiculously forward set. I would have loved to have tried the bike with more conventional foot pegs a little bit further back, but that's just not the modern way anymore. I don't think anybody's going to be disappointed in the way the Indian Scout goes around corners, handles and stops. The brakes on the Indian Scout are ABS equipped, so it's not going to lock up on you unexpectedly. So the Indian Scout should appeal to an awful lot of people. It's a very easy motorcycle to ride, and for a big cruiser, it's not very heavy, it's very easy to manoeuvre, and as they said, it's very well balanced. Now with 100 horsepower, plenty of torque, it's not for the raw beginner by any stretch of the imagination, but if you're coming off your first bike and you're off the learner approved system, it's very much worth a look. I think this will appeal to people that are short, people that are tall. If you just want a good looking, honest machine at a very good price from an American manufacturer that I think will hold its value quite well, go and check them out at your Indian dealer. The Indian Scout will be readily available in 2015. Some will arrive before then, but most of them are already spoken for. Check them out at your Indian dealer or indianmotorcycle.com.au. Read all about the KTM RC390 in the November issue of Cycle Talk magazine, out now. Also on the cover is the 2015 Yamaha YZ450 and 250F. You can read the November issue in print from better bike shops across Australia, on your computer or Android device through cycletalk.com.au in our PDF edition,
but the best way to enjoy Cycle Talk is on an iPad or an iPhone, which is everything in the print edition plus embedded video, slideshows and lots more pictures. And it's all free. Download the app from the App Store and then subscribe free and download back issues too. All of Cycle Talk's editions, electronic and print, are free. Check out more information on Cycle Talk on our website, cycletalk.com.au, and on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. You could win your choice of a Kubota Aeroblade 3 road helmet valued at $424.99 or a pair of RXT motocross helmets valued at $358. Just log on to Facebook and like the Cycle Talk page and share the helmet promotion post. Just search for Cycle Talk inside Facebook or go directly to facebook.com/cycletalk for your chance to win. Cycle Talk updates Facebook regularly with news, photos and interesting links. We're also posting great pictures to Instagram and tweeting the latest on Twitter.
You might call this a tale of two Ducatis, one born to race and the other one born to rule the roads. But today what we're going to do is take a look at what is required to turn a road bike into a race bike. Now, classic road racing is huge all across the world. And when you look at some of the big racing events in Australia, you're only going to look at the Island Classic, which is on the January long weekend every year at Phillip Island. Now, when it comes to crowd numbers, it's third only to MotoGP and World Superbike. And when you look at competitor numbers, this year's event had over 400 competitors, making it the biggest road race event in Australia's history. Now, this 1990 Ducati 851 falls into what's called the Period 6 Formula 1300 class of historic racing. Now, this bike was built by Sean Suckley from D-Moto, a Sydney-based specialist motorcycle workshop, especially for me to ride in the 2013 Classic TT on the Isle of Man. There's many things that need to be done to turn that into that. Now, it's all about safety. So you can't run the lights, you can't run certain things that make a bike road legal on a race bike. And anything that can basically leak a fluid, whether it be water in your radiator or oil in the engine, basically has to be lock wired so that you don't crash on your own fluid and no one else crashes on it either. So when you rock up to scrutineering, every time you race, you have to go through scrutineering and they will make sure that the bike is legal for its class and also safe for you to race it. There's plenty of other things that need to be lock wired as well. For example, your front brake caliper bolts. And for the Isle of Man, you had to take it another step further because every time you went up to the track, the bike had to go through scrutineering. And that places a lot more strain on a motorcycle. So things like your handlebar bolts had to be lock wired just for that extra bit of safety. Any bolt that could basically come undone, something had to be done to it, whether it be lock wired or tape put over it so it couldn't come out. Now, there's plenty of other parts too that make a race bike a little bit more special than a road bike. For example, this one's built to be as light as it possibly can be. So it's got forged magnesium wheels, so they're much lighter than these things. So what that does is overall reduces weight, but it also makes the bike tip in easier. It's got a carbon fibre tank, and it's also got lightweight fiberglass fairings. And of course it doesn't have all those extra road legal stuff like the headlight, tail light, blinkers and so on. Overall, the weight difference between these two bikes is basically like strapping a 20 kilo bag of cement on the fuel tank of this bike. So it is a big difference. This bike's also got a lot more horsepower as well. So with historic racing, what you can do is update the parts of the engine to later model parts as long as they look the same from the outside. Now, back in the day, the crankcases of these 851s weren't the strongest things. So we use later model crankcases. They look the same, but they're stronger internally. Doesn't give you a performance benefit, but it just does make the engine stronger and more reliable, which in turn is safer. It's also got bigger capacity than this one, so this is 888cc now, which still falls within the rules. It's got 916 Ducati heads, it's got lumpier camshafts, and it's also got bigger injectors. So all in all, this thing might make 100 horsepower, this thing will make close to 130. But lots of horsepower and lightweight isn't the whole story. the bike still has to get around the track as fast as it can to be a competitive race bike. So it needs to have good suspension and great brakes. This thing's got Öhlins suspension front and rear, and they're being tweaked to do the best possible job they can do. And same goes for the Brembo brakes. And you want to make sure that they're good when the corners are rushing up real fast. All in all, this race bike here is just a stronger, faster and sleeker version of the road bike. This bike does mean a lot to me. It fulfilled a dream for me to race at the Isle of Man, a dream I've had for basically all my adult life. I wanted to do a 100-mile-an-hour lap. I couldn't quite get there. It was 98.9 or something like that. And no doubt with a better rider, this bike would have went a lot faster. But it is, in my mind, a tribute to Sean's ability to build a bike like this. He knows them back to front, and the bike, more so than the speed, got me around the Isle of Man safe, which is a big thing in itself. Now, they say that less than 50% of Ducatis that have raced at the Isle of Man have actually finished. Well, this one did.
Everyone puts their pants on one leg at a time. What separates some of us, though, is what we throw a leg over after our pants are on. The new Harley-Davidson Breakout motorcycle. Breakout.
We have official time here. Neil Wyatt leads by 3 seconds from Alex Pickett. It is third place. It is Chris Dixon. 26.
Road racing, for some reason, held a fascination for me.
Always growing up watching it.
It's my dream, but he's probably taken on some of that.
And knowing Dad want to do it, I've always wanted to do it.
In this peaceful environment, the KTM 1190 Adventure R almost looks a little bit meek and mild, doesn't it? But looks can be deceiving. Open the throttle on this beast and you will unleash more power than any adventure bike really has any right to have. This is the latest in a decade-long list of KTM big bore adventure bikes. For 2014, this 1190 Adventure R is the most powerful and most capable in all of the bike's history. So you can understand why there's a fairly big lineup of people wanting to buy one of these bikes. So let's take a look at why it's so good. Well, first off, it's got all the usual suspects when it comes to technology. It's got 150 horsepower and it's got ride-by-wire throttle, which gives the rider multiple riding modes to play with. Now, it's alright having lots of horsepower, but a good adventure bike's got to have the suspension to back it up. Now, the 1190 Adventure R has got WP suspension front and rear. You can tackle just about anything you want without the thoughts, you know, this bike's not really doing what I want it to do. For example, if you're in sports and you're on the road, it's firmer. If you're in the off-road settings, well, the suspension softens up, ready to tackle what you want to do off-road. Now, the bike is a beast though, and you have to be pretty careful. It weighs 240 kilograms with 23 litres of fuel on board. It's got 220 millimetres of suspension travel at either end. The suspension is great, but it's not foolproof. As we found out a couple of times, you know, you hit some big hits at speed and, you know, it's a big bike, so always got to be wary of that. It's got pretty potent brakes on it. It's got Brembo radially mounted 4-piston calipers on the front and a single Brembo on the rear. Serious stuff. It also has the motorcycle stability control. Now, what that gives you is lean sensitive traction control and also lean sensitive ABS. It's smart and it's safe. But rarely has a bike felt so good on the tar and the bush. You know what? There's adventure bikes, but then there's adventure bikes like KTM's 1190 Adventure R. Now, its on-road performance will absolutely blow your mind, but it'll take you to places like this, which will blow your mind in an altogether different way.
The $21,995 KTM Adventure R is available now. 148 horsepower and more info from ktm.com.au.
Today we're going to take a look at Kawasaki's largest agricultural ATV. It's the Brute Force 750 4x4i. Now, the obvious feature of this machine is that big 750cc power plant. It's liquid-cooled, fuel-injected 90-degree V-twin that produces a whopping 37 kilowatts. But that's not the only feature. ATV design has progressed rapidly across the board in recent times, and Kawasaki has not been left behind. If you look at the Brute Force, it appears to be square and squat, low to the ground, but its actual dimensions are in keeping with other ATVs on the market. It just follows recent design trends of maintaining really good ground clearance and rider vision, but also giving a really planted feel to the terrain. Now, the Brute Force range has all the features that you come to expect of modern ATVs.
It's things like four-wheel drive being selectable from the right handlebar and fully independent suspension that is adjustable for preload, while the racks front and rear offer superb tie-down points and a 120 kilogram carrying capacity. Up front, you'll find some handy glove compartments for storage, and note the 12-volt DC power supply. 6-spoke cast aluminium wheels are fitted as standard, and the diff lock is operated by a lever on the left handlebar. With other standard features like the electronic power steering, I was pretty confident the big Kawasaki was going to be handy around the farm. Out in the paddock, the terrain can be fairly unpredictable and you usually operate at low speeds, and this is where the electronic power steering really helped. At low speed, the Kawasaki was still very manoeuvrable and it was easy to get in and out of tight spots. I was also liking the ergonomics of the seating position and the seat itself. It was really plush and comfy for a long day in the saddle. The independent suspension also performed really well, although it felt a little firmer than other ATVs, and I was about to find out why. This machine just loved the rough going, and we were able to test it on a wide variety of different terrain. The shaft drive and sealed wet rear brake meant there are less exposed components, and like most ATV manufacturers, Kawasaki has their own proprietary system to make throttle take-up as smooth as possible. They call it the Kawasaki Automatic Power Drive System. There is plenty of storage space front and rear, and if you don't want to fit your own toolboxes, Kawasaki have purpose-built units available, meaning this ATV has nearly every task on the farm covered. Okay, so we've had a few days now on the Kawasaki Brute Force 750, and a few people have test ridden the bike and they've all had very positive impressions. One of the big standouts of the bike, besides the very powerful engine, is the power steering. The power steering was excellent, especially at low speeds in four-wheel drive. Very light, easy to manoeuvre, and the bike also had a really tight turning circle. I felt that it could have been a bit tighter at higher speeds. Wasn't quite dampened enough for me at higher speeds, but overall very good on the power steering. The suspension was also a standout for me. On tougher terrain, harder terrain, when it was really working hard, that's when it felt good. And I guess it's got to work really good because it's a very powerful engine, so that chassis and suspension, running gear, it's got to be able to handle it, and it does. Descent control is very good, especially in low range. Brakes also very good. Overall, Kawasaki has produced a really good package that is up there and can compete with every other modern ATV.
The Kawasaki KVF 750 produces 37 kilowatts of power, 59 newton meters of torque, priced at $13,999. Check them out at your Kawasaki dealer. Lots more information at kawasaki.com.au. Come down to On Two Wheels Motorsports, Sydney's best motorcycle shop and a proud sponsor of Cycle Talk TV, with a huge range of new Yamaha and Kawasaki motorcycles and ATVs, as well as a huge range of spares and all the accessories you're likely to need. On Two Wheels can help get you into the right bike at the right price with the right accessories and the right advice. On Two Wheels Motorsports, 304 Queen Street, Campbelltown. Find us online on social media or call us on 024625 7518.
Everyone puts their pants on one leg at a time. What separates some of us, though, is what we throw a leg over after our pants are on. The new Harley-Davidson Breakout motorcycle. Breakout.
We've had our sweet little Ducati 659 Monster for a few months now, and in standard form, while they look nice, they are a little bit understated. Now, we wanted to jazz the look of our bike up a little bit, and we didn't have to look any further than our local Ducati dealer. And the reason is, there's a range of body kits available for a number of different Monster models. So we decided to look at that and go from there. Well, this is made much easier by the smart bodywork design of these Monster models, including our learner-approved 659. You see, sure, there's fuel tank panels here, but there's a fuel cell underneath. These panels easily come off, as does the seat cowl, the front mudguard, and the headlight cowl. Fitting the kit is very easy. It took Alex about half an hour with simple hand tools. Now, there's a range of kits available, as I said, and some of the kits celebrate a point in Ducati's history which was pretty special, and others have a bit more of a more modern touch on it. You have the black and gold Dharma kit, which looks back to the late 70s and early 80s, when the Ducati Dama was one of the best sports touring you could buy. The silver, blue and red kit celebrates the success of the Ducati 500 Pantar, the first production belt drive motorcycle Ducati produced, and it was a big seller in Australia. The IOM 78, this is one of the greatest stories ever for Ducati. The late great Mike Hayward came out of retirement for 11 years to race in the toughest motorcycle road race, the Isle of Man TT. The bike, essentially a one-off Ducati race bike built by Sports Motorcycles in the UK, was taken to an historic win by Mike, cementing his name and Ducati's in TT folklore. It spawned a production Mike Hayward replica, these days one of the most sought after Ducatis ever built. The Mach 1 kit uses a 1960 single cylinder machine as inspiration. And when you look at the Nicky Hayden and Valentino Rossi kits, well, they need no introduction really. Both riders have their place in Ducati history as factory MotoGP riders. While not all Ducati dealers will have every kit on the shelf, you can order any of these kits through your local Ducati dealer. All in all, there's 9 kits available, and it really is an easy and cost-effective way to update your Ducati Monster. There's so many motorcycle oils and lubricants on the market these days that it can be pretty confusing. But if you choose wisely and get the right products for your motorcycle, you will be rewarded with a better performing and more reliable machine. Now, not every bike uses the same lubricants, and a motorcycle will always offer more challenges to those lubricants than a car would. But whether it be the humble postie bike, a two-stroke motocrosser, or a big bore road racing machine, Ipone has got you covered. Ipone has been around for close to 30 years and it's got dealers all throughout the world. There's close to 50 products for motorcycles on their books, and it's going to be a hard job not to find the right product for your machine. So let's have a look at the oil we've got here. Now, it's the Katana 10 weight 40 fully synthetic sports 4-stroke motorcycle oil. You can get it in a variety of different viscosities, and you can also get it specifically for motocross machines or off-road machines. So road bike, road racing bike, off-road racer, enduro bike through the bush, you can tailor, or you can get this particular oil to suit exactly what you want. Now, this oil has also got ester in it. Now, it's 100% synthetic chemical compound, which according to Ipone is formulated to cope with the stresses of a motorcycle clutch and to also give you better acceleration and smoother gear changes. Now, you can buy Ipone products in motorcycle shops right across the country. So whether it be engine oil, chain lube or oil for your air filter, you'll find an Ipone product suitable for your needs.